how many of you, if I just ask you, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just to stand up where you are right now, you could just say the golden rule. You could just speak the golden rule. Anybody raise your hand if you could do that? Just stand up where you are right now, and you could do that. You could speak. I know the stand up right here. Sandy, go ahead. Stand up if you don't mind. I know I said if you could, but do you mind standing up and saying it? Loud. You're over in the corner. Yes. Okay, that's great. Now that secret's out, and so we went golden rule. Let's see, I knew it was cleanliness next to godliness, stuff like, people are going through this little, no, I know, you know what the golden rule is, I know. We may say it a little differently, whatever, and I actually, even on our sheet here, have about 3 different translations and one paraphrase, just to give us a little bit of like shaping on it. But I think that most people, whether they've been raised in church or not, in our culture, know about the golden rule. The golden rule, we often talk about, what Bible verse do we say most people have memorized, the most memorized Bible verse? Anybody tell me what that is? Okay, who's going to stand and quote that now? That standing and quote it thing's a little problem. Go ahead, Amanda. Okay, that's real close, real close. We're going to call it. That's Amanda's paraphrase of it, okay? But it's very, very good. Thank you. See, the deal is, a lot of people do know that verse. That's probably the most common memorized verse. But I would say that it is possible that actually the golden rule might be as well known. It's just it may not, maybe be that not everybody realizes that it's I don't know that everybody realizes it's in the Bible. I know you do. I know you guys here do and everything. But I'm not sure everybody realizes it's in the Bible. And I'm fairly certain that not everybody realizes that Jesus is the one who said it. Jesus is the one who spoke those words. And he is the one who said that we should treat people the way we would like to be treated. And so there's this common awareness of it and familiarity with it. Now, let me just ask you this. Whenever Sandy quoted the verse over here, how many of you, whether you remembered which one's the golden rule or not, once she said it, how many of you would say you've heard that probably several times, even just one time in your life? How many would say you've ever heard of that, heard it, the golden rule, okay? I need to get at some Rotten Tomatoes or something. I don't think you guys, some of you aren't awake, okay? But bottom line is this: I'm pretty sure most of you. I think I saw about 60% of the hands lifted. So the rest of you, then you better listen very carefully, because here's what I was going to do. Now, those of you that know it, I was going to go ahead and say, well, since everybody has heard it and everybody's aware of it, that's my message. So if you think you know it, then you can go ahead and leave, because that's my message. Just go treat people the way you want to be treated. That's the message. But since some of you were very hesitant about that, or some of you didn't raise your hands, and I'm not sure you even, had heard it before or whatever, then I'm going to go ahead and share the message. So if you really feel like you got this one nailed down, you can go ahead and leave, but the rest of you stay, okay? I'm going to break this down because I think that as simple as these words are, just like everything with Jesus, I mean, you think about it, whenever he is God, and you think about the complexity of our world, and yet in some ways how simple that world is, that's kind of how God operates. There's a depth, there's a thoroughness, there's an intensity that is just amazing. It's like you can't quite get to the bottom of it all. You can keep searching. I don't know if you've ever had the experience before. I've read passages of Scripture before, and I've studied them. I've even preached sermons from them before, and then gone back and be reading it again, and all of a sudden, brand new stuff coming at me. And I'm thinking, wow, the Scriptures are deep. But yet at the same time, they're really quite simple. In most cases, they're very simple. They're straightforward. I don't think anybody has to scratch your head real hard. And Jesus is standing there, and he says out to the crowd, he goes, treat people the way you'd like to be treated. I don't think anybody's going, that is so deep. I can't understand what he means. It's the base. It's just simple. It's just straightforward. It's just there. You can get your hands on it. Now, I will tell you this, just for some interesting reading. You might want to go back up to the first verse of chapter 7 not right now, but at some point, and kind of come down through, because he said a lot of these kind of one-liners in this chapter. He's still in the Sermon on the Mount. He said a lot of one-liners that are just powerful, 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 powerful. And yet, they're so simple. But this is the one we're going to focus on today. And if you look at your handout sheet, I'm breaking it down from the translation called the New American Standard Bible, very literal translation, and that's the one that I'm actually speaking to you from. And that's the third one listed down on your sheet. In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. Now, before we get into my outline, let me just mention a couple things about that early statement in here. It says, in everything. What does the word everything mean? Pardon me? Everything's all. It doesn't mean some things. It doesn't mean when you're having a good day. It doesn't mean if you feel like it. It says in everything. In everything, therefore. Now, therefore always refers back to what's just been said before, and that's the reason why I wanted to mention it to you, that you would go back and read those verses at some point, chapter 7, verses 1 down through. Because in the context of relationships, this is all about relationships. In the context of relationships, he's already said a lot about that. He said about judging, he said about, all various things, and I'm not going to go through the list of things he mentioned there, but he talks about a variety of things that have to do with relationships. So since he said that, now let me say this, is what he's saying. In everything. And again, that means everything, last I checked. Treat people the same way you want them to treat you. Now, this is the entire verse, for this is the law and the prophets. This is the law and the prophets. Now, that's a pretty significant statement. We'll come to that as we go through this verse. So the first two words I want you to look at are treat people. Treat people. Others say, do to others. Have you ever had anybody say, why'd you do that to me? I mean, why did you do that to me? That's what I say to cops when they pull me over. Why did you do that to me? I mean, didn't you know everybody else is speeding out here too? There's something in all of us that has that normal sense of when something happens, we're going, why did you do that to me? Why did you do that to me? Jesus, as he always does, he starts things flipped over from how we approach it. And so he says to the people standing around him, he goes, treat people. Do to others. And so I see a couple of things in that are very critical in my mind to understanding this verse properly. And that is that we are to be proactive in our attitude, in our treatment of other people. We're not supposed to be just reactive. We're supposed to be proactive. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't any, we do react to things. I'm not saying that there's no reaction. But really, I think the better is, instead of being reactive, in the light of what Jesus is saying here, is be responsive. Be responsive. And because when we're reactive, we're generally just, whatever someone says or does, we're just responding. We're coming right back after that and kind of in kind. Reaction is kind of in kind. You say something to your kids, why did you hit your brother? Because he hit me. Rarely do you ask somebody why they did something wrong and they say, well, really because I'm a fairly dysfunctional child and I have a lot of problems and a lot of anger down inside, and so I just decided to do that. I don't know. If you have a child like that, I want that kid. I don't care if they are dysfunctional. That's how I want, because they're at least honest with themselves, Most people, they do something wrong because of what somebody else did or did to them. And the thing is, we see it in kids, but we have a hard time seeing it in ourselves. I'm sorry, I have to admit, I struggle with this. And that is, if I've done something, I always want to find a scapegoat someplace to blame it on. you know? And we live in a world where that is a common thing that we see and we experience. And Jesus just says, hey, do to others, treat others. You be proactive. Don't wait around till someone does something to you and you do back. You be proactive. You be responsive. And responsive kind of carries a sense of being responsible with how you respond to what somebody has done towards you. Be responsive. So this is talking about, when he's talking about here, is not waiting until everybody else is like they ought to be, doing what they ought to be, doing it when they ought to be doing it, directly towards you, and then you'll treat them the way you would like to be treated. He starts off here. You treat them. You treat them. You treat them the way you'd like to be treated. Treat them. He doesn't say wait till they do. He doesn't say, look and see what they're doing that's good, and then you decide if you'll do something good. He says, treat them. Treat them. Be proactive. Another way of saying that may be take the initiative. Take the initiative. Sometimes, I think in our marriages, I would say that probably sometimes all of us have felt at times like, well, I've taken the initiative. I've taken the initiative. I've taken the initiative. I've taken the initiative. I'm just going to wait and see. Is that how you want to be treated? See, you treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, let me say this. Jesus is the one teaching this, okay? I didn't make this up. And nobody said it was easy. I don't think Jesus, I don't think he said, now this is going to be an easy one to do right here. He didn't say that. He didn't say it was going to be hard either. He just spoke the truth about it. And the truth is that oftentimes when we do the right thing, it is hard initially. But I believe once we learn the habit of doing the right thing, not only becomes easier, but we begin to see the value and benefit of it. So take the initiative. If you've been waiting for someone to treat you kindly for a long time, whether it's someone in your house, whether it's a friend, someone else, why don't you just make sure that you're treating them kindly? Let them be responsible for their actions. You just make sure you're treating them kindly. Now, number two, the second thing I want to mention from this second phrase is treat people, and here's the next phrase, the same way you want them to treat you. But I want to use the phrase, the same way that you want. The same way. Now, there's something genius, and of course you would expect that from the God of the universe, wouldn't you? To me, there's something extremely genius about what Jesus says here. Because first of all, this is pretty simple. It's simple. You don't have to stand there and go, well, I wonder if I should be polite to that person or not. Do you want to be treated politely? Simple. Don't have to think about it. Simple, simple, simple. Just treat them the way you'd like to be treated. It's simple. This isn't complicated. We like to take things that we don't like to do and we like to complicate them. Jesus is going, I'm making this about as easy as it could be for you. Simple. Just do it. You know how you like to be treated. Just do that. Simple. Common sense. Now, I know some people, it seems like they and common sense parted ways a long time ago, but no one here. You wouldn't be here this morning if you didn't have good common sense. You're here, you have good common sense, okay? But just good common sense will guide you on this. The same way you want to be treated. Just use your common sense. Just think through. And it almost doesn't even require thinking through. And here's the third. I'm just kind of like saying the same thing over in different ways, okay? You don't have to ponder it. You don't have to sit around and go, I wonder how I want to be treated in this situation. If I'm selling my used van that has blah, 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 and it's got the, how would I want to be treated if I was the person coming and looking at that van? Yeah, but I'm not the one that's come and look at it. I'm the one trying to get rid of it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about how honest you would be with them. You don't have to think about how you would portray it. Just do it the way you would like for them to do it to you if you were the one buying. It's awfully quiet in here. And I'm okay with that as long as you're not asleep. Anybody asleep? If there is somebody asleep, wake them up. I know it's a little cloudy out. If you're just listening well, that's great. I'm with you. We're good. Here's the last little piece of this I'll pull out to this, and that is it's instinctive. You know how you want to be treated. You really know how you should treat other people. Jesus is just simply saying, guys, this is not rocket science. I mean, it's deep, but it's not rocket science. It's just treat people the way you'd want to be treated. I mean, this is like ground level. This is something everybody can do. This is something we all can get. This is something we can all practice. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't make it something it's not. Go ahead and just do it. Do it. Treat people. Next time you're nice to somebody, they say, well, that was really kind of you. Say, I'm treating you. No, say, I'm doing to you as I would like to have done. So we talk about treat is something, like we're going to go get a treat. I'm going to treat you today. That means you're going to do something for that person. You're going to give them, whether it's ice cream, whether it's something else, whatever it is, you're treating them. He says, treat other people. Do good to other people in the way that you want, the same way you want it. And then here's the third one. The same way you want them to treat you. Boy, I thought you'd never get to how people treat me. Rod, I thought you were going to leave that out. I thought you were just going to leave it how I treat other people. What about the way they treat me? Well, it's still about how you treat other people. We're just using you as an example. Jesus was just using you as an example. He's going, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. How do you want people to treat you? It's pretty easy to get stuck right on this one right here. Well, if people would just treat me the way they ought to treat me, then I wouldn't have this bad attitude. If my boss would just treat me the right way, if my employees would just treat me this way, if my husband or my wife would just treat me this way, if my kids would just treat me this way, if my parents hadn't treated me this way, boy, we are really aware of how we're treated, aren't we? I mean, that radar just is always going, how am I being treated? How am I being treated? And we know how we think we ought to be treated. That's wonderful. That is great. You know why? Because that informs you exactly how you treat other people. That is why it's so great. It gives you the information you need to know how you ought to treat other people. Yeah, but I don't feel like anybody treats me that way. Let's start a movement of treating people the way we would like to be treated. What if we did that? Wouldn't that be revolutionary? If we treated people the way we would like to be treated, you go, well, that gives them control. No, it doesn't give them control at all. You're still controlling you're still controlling all of your actions, all of your words, all of the things that you say and do. You're controlling those. You're just doing them in a way that is a blessing, that people can receive. Some people may not, but people can receive. It's easy to excuse our treatment of other people because of how they treated us. Well, I would treat them this way, but you don't know what they did to me. You don't know. They don't deserve to be treated. They don't, if you only knew what they've done against me. Well, I don't necessarily know, and I understand that, if you've been treated poorly, that's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. And I'm not saying that you become a rug. This is where this whole forgiveness thing, and if you and it gets a little foggy for people sometimes. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you let people use you as a floor mat. It doesn't mean that you do lunch with them every day. It just means that you choose not to hold deep resentment toward them and wish, that they would die or that kind of thing, because you've released that and given them to God for him to do as he sees fit for them to do. And then you manage yourself in such a way as to not keep getting run over, but it doesn't mean that you have to do them wrong. It doesn't mean you have to do them wrong just because they've done you wrong. And so sometimes we use it, how we treat people, as an excuse because of how they've treated us. And sometimes it's easy also then, we want to treat them in the same way that we want them, we're to treat them in the same way we want them to treat us. And sometimes it's easier for us to be reactive to how they treat us than it is to be proactive in treating them the way we want to be treated rather than treating them how they treated us. Does that make sense? How we want to be treated is our rule of thumb for how to treat others, not something to get self-absorbed about. Oh, I'm all focused on how people treat me. You have to be aware of that. I'm not talking about deny who you are, deny if you've been mistreated. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just simply saying that this idea is not to be so focused on how you're treated that you can't do what God said through the person of Jesus, and saying that treat people the way you would like to be treated. Well, someone says something to us and we go, well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll show you this or I'll show you that. I'll do this or I'll do that. Is that how you want to be treated? Now I want to go to the last part of this verse, and it says this. It says, for this is the law and the prophets. This is the law and the prophets. Now, I want you to look on your scripture lesson, because what I did was I put down the 10 Commandments here on your scripture lesson. And the 10 Commandments are there because they're some of the most visible laws that God gave us in the Old Testament that he handed to Moses, and Moses brought down to give to the people. And the first 4 of these commandments are directly related to our relationship toward God. The last 6 are directed toward our relationship toward people. And so whenever there's one other place in the Bible where it says that what was stated is a summary of the law and the prophets. And that's where Jesus talked about the great commandments, where he talked about love God with your whole being and love people as you love yourself, love others as you love yourself. And that's a summary again. And that particularly is a really like an outline almost of the 10 Commandments. Because if you love God with your whole being, you're paying attention to the first 4 commandments that are given. It's a fulfillment of those. And then if you love others as you love yourself, you're fulfilling the last 6 commandments that are given of the 10 Commandments as it relates to other people. And basically, a quick read, if you look down at verse 12 on this list, because that's where it begins with the treatment of other people, which particularly is instructive when Jesus is saying here, treat people the same way you want to be treated. When he's saying that, here is this human dynamic relationship from the law. In verse 12, it says, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. 13, you shall not murder. 14, you shall not commit adultery. 15, you shall not steal. 16, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And number 17, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything else, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, I'm not going to break down all these. These are pretty self-explanatory too. But it's always been a little bit interesting to me whenever we've had some of the moves in our culture to remove the 10 Commandments from being visible or whatever, visibly seen. It's like I keep thinking, well, man, I really would like to have someone who pays attention to these last 6 be a neighbor of mine. They don't want my lawnmower. They're not coveting my lawnmower, And and they don't, they're not a liar. And those are the kind of neighbors I really want. If you live near me, you can keep all the 10 Commandments all day long. Okay, I kind of appreciate that because what they do is they show respect to other people. It says every person is of value. We value people, individuals, and that's what Jesus is saying here. Do to others the same. Treat them the same way that you would want them to treat you. Now, I'm going to look at 3 scopes of this truth, and this is like, how do you put this into practice? What ways do you put this into practice? And the first one is inside our intimate circle of friends and family. People, we would say, they're my close associates. These are people that I hang out with. These are people I live life with. These are people that I do things with. They know me quite well. I know them quite well. And so the first scope of this is practicing this in this intimate circle of family and friends. And you say, how do you do that? I believe how you practice this in that circle is a little bit different than how you practice it in some of the other circles. And you say, well, Rod, the principle is the same. The principle is the same. Because if you look at what this scripture says, it says treat people the same way you want them to treat you. Now let me ask you this question, and that is, whenever you got married, how many of you married someone who's just like you? They like all the same things you like. They have the same sleep patterns. They squeeze the toothpaste the same way on the whatever. How many married somebody that's almost exactly like you? How many of you did, if you're married? Okay, I see no hands. Probably comes pretty close to proving the point. I know those of you that may feel that way, you're going, I'm not raising a hand. What's he going to have a stand and do? But so there might be, let's say there's a couple or two. Angie and I are more alike than different in many ways. We actually fall a little bit more into that category than a lot of people do. But, and that has its own challenges too, okay? Because you can both overlook the same thing, all day long and go, oh, we didn't even see that. We didn't even know that, whatever. It's kind of not, it doesn't work out that well in some circumstances either, even though it can create more harmony maybe. But here's the thing. Because we're different, we appreciate things differently. In other words, let's see, I got to think of somebody here who I got to pick on, okay? Is there anybody here like Starbucks? I'm just trying to, anybody here like Starbucks? Oh, Drew, come on, man. Okay, okay, wow. So we got a few people in a minute. Now listen, now it would be like this, okay? If you really, really like Starbucks, now see, if I'm thinking I want to treat you guys the same way I want to be treated, you know what I would do? I would bring you Dunkin' Donut coffee. I'd be going, man, that's the way I want to be treated. And you guys are going like, this stuff tastes like flavored water. Whatever your reason is for liking murky Starbucks coffee, Amanda and Jim and Drew, whatever it is. But you see, if I did just exactly what I wanted, I would get you what I like. But when you have people who are in your intimate circle of friends, what you know about them is they don't always like everything the exact same way you like it. So here's what this verse, I think, means in that context is, if I know that Jim and Amanda and Drew I know those three know I like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And so if they're going to treat me the same way they would like to be treated, they would go through Dunkin' Donuts after they stop at Starbucks and bring me a Dunkin' Donuts with them while they sit there and drink their Starbucks, because they're treating me the same way they'd like me to treat them. I would do it for you, guys. I'd hold my nose. No, I'm just kidding. I would do it for you. I would, because see, that's what I think this means. Whenever and see, this is what when we start talking about this kind of thing, we're saying that's when you really know somebody. Have you ever studied your spouse enough to know the little things they like and dislike? And so all of a sudden you show up one day and you've got chocolate drops or whatever, I don't know what chocolate drop is. Anyway, But it sounded good. But you got something, and they're going, how did you know I like these? Well, I've been married to you a few years, and I've been watching you, and I notice every time you get a chance, But see, that is treating people the way we'd like to be treated, with knowledge. For people who you know well, you know intimately, you know close, and that's certainly within your family. It certainly spreads beyond that, some cases beyond there. Then you treat them with the knowledge you have about who they are, because that's really how we'd like to be treated. If someone is doing something for us, and you know they know us well enough to know some of our idiosyncrasies, and they seem to ignore that in how they do, you appreciate their thoughtfulness, but it doesn't have the same effect as when that thoughtfulness matches your likes and who you are. Are you with me? Everybody understand what I'm saying? Except the tithe part? No, I'm sorry. I get stuff in my brain, and I'm bad for that. I guess you guys don't have a great appreciation for that joke. So we'll move on. I wanted to mention that one of the best ways to really be able to do this toward your spouse or toward your children or toward the people that you have more of what you call more of your intimate circle is to really pay attention to this thing that has been described by Dr. Gary Chapman as the 5 love languages. And can anybody, I know some of you are aware of this, and so it's just a little bit more fun, and since some people are trying to fall asleep on me here, I need to keep you awake. So I'm going to ask you, if you know one of the 5 love languages that Gary mentions, could you just call it out? Call one of them out. Oh, whoa, only one at a time. Wait, you have to raise your hand, man. Okay, back here in the back. Gifts. Receiving gifts? Okay. Receiving gifts. Do you know here's one of the ways that you can know if your spouse has the spiritual gift or not spiritual gift, but the love language of receiving gifts, if they're always getting you gifts. And especially if you're going, man, don't get me anything else. I'm like, that's their love language, because we tend to do that. Now, pay attention. Now, I will say this. I'm going to go ahead and say this one on this. Scott, I have no idea if this is true, since she knew that one very well, okay? But I will say this. If you're dating somebody and their love language is gifts, find out what their price range is before you marry them. I'm just telling you. Find out, because I'm telling you. Because it means to them, you love me, but let me tell you, boy, you could go broke in a heartbeat on that one. So you might want to just check that one out, okay? Okay, what's another one? Okay, over here, Greg. Time. Quality time, I think, is the phrase used. Quality time. Because, see, sometimes I find myself doing this with my kids. I've got to go to the hospital. I've got to go check on this. I've got to run and drop that off. I've got to go do this. You guys come, we'll spend time together. Oh, we're together, but they're with me on my time doing the things I need to do. Quality time, well, I know what it is for Hunter. Just pick up any kind of ball or anything that looks like a ball or anything that could even semblance a ball at all and throw it with me for a while, and that's his love. I mean, that's quality time for him. So we all know just spending time isn't enough. It's quality time if a person has that as their love language. Now, what's the third one? No order here. Okay, we're here. I'll take both of you guys, just one at a time. Olivia first, and then up to you, Allison. What's that? Acts of service, absolutely. Like scratch your back, rub your head. No, bring stuff to you, bring cups of coffee to you in bed. What is it? Do the dishes. Oh, grief. Okay, let's not personalize this stuff too much here, okay? Let's not. Brandon, I know you're a good man in the house. I know that, so I know you are. We probably all need to get in line and learn from you. Wow. Okay, you just put it right out there. I'm not even going to try to add anything to that. That's just, you guys, for all the men in the house, particularly, you know, if your wife has the love language acts of service, just go do some dishes. Come on, get it going. Okay, Allison. Words of affirmation, absolutely. Wow. 3, absolutely. Absolutely. Words of affirmation. Now, if my list here tells me right, we got them all, right? No, we didn't. We have one more. I'm sorry. We do have one more. I just saw it at the top of the list. Physical touch, absolutely. And that one's really, that's the scratching of the head and rubbing the back, isn't it? And the holding hands and, all that stuff, hugging. Now, guys, here's what I'm going to just tell you on this. Because really, you live most of your life, you spend more hours in a day, maybe at work, than you might, you're sleeping at home, you have more hours at home, but I'm saying, but the people that you're going to spend more time with over a lifetime is people in that intimate circle. I think Jesus really is saying, treat people in the same way you would like to be treated. You go, what? He is saying that. Yes, he is. But let's get down to that level of going, how do you read that person? How do you know that person? Not just doing stuff, not just treating, not just doing for them, but you're literally doing for them, treating them in the way it may be different than what you would like, but it's how you would like it with knowledge toward who you are. So I encourage you, with people in that intimate circle of family and friends, exercise that layered down knowledge that you already have about that person and treat them in the same way that you would like to be treated with knowledge and understanding and specificity as far as it relates to the things that matter to you personally. Now, the second scope of this truth is this larger layer of friends and associates. People that you interact with, it may be coworkers, some of them might be in that first batch, but it might be, people that you do business with in various forms, or, just a whole layer of people. Maybe sometimes it's church people that but you know a set better than you know others in your neighborhood, whatever it is. This larger layer circle of friends and associates. Now, in many cases, you're not going to know their specific love languages and things like that. So you treat them to the best of your ability as you know who they are. You treat them in the best understanding. And one of the things I've even noticed is this, and that is that you can see certain personalities almost immediately whenever you're out in public, when you're talking to somebody. You might be checking out at the grocery store, and some people want to talk your ear off. I guess at the end of the day, they probably hit about 1 million words or something, because they are still talking. They're talking when you got there, they're talking while you're going through, and they're talking when you left. And that's part of the reason they love that job, because they can just keep right on talking. They don't even have to punch the numbers anymore. They just swipe that thing, and just keep right on talking and keep right on talking. And so, that person, when you treat them the way, they just engage with them. You just talk to them. You just keep on talking to them. Understand when you're done, they're going to talk to the next person. You just keep on going. But that's how you relate. You can catch things. Then there's other people you can either assume they've had a bad day, or they're having, or something's going wrong in their life, or they're just super shy. They don't seem to want to talk. And before I was more aware of this, sometimes I'd try to make them talk. And that wasn't treating them the same way I'd like to be treated. It made them miserable. They had to say a few more words that day than they really wanted to say, Or there's a blabbermouth, get out of here, get out of my life, get out of my way, leave me alone. I like being in this little zone, And so what we do is when we interact with those people, we try to read as best we can who they are, where they are. And I don't mean psychoanalyze everybody. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about that general sense. We're always aware of our surroundings. Be aware of those and treat people in a way that you would like to be treated. Then the third one is this, just people as a whole. You may not know them personally, but you interact with them once in a while, or you just people in general. And I would just say this, one of the things that we've kind of lost in our world, not in every place, and Georgia's a place where still a fair amount of this is alive, but just a general kindness towards strangers, and I think politeness is always in vogue, okay? I think it's always in vogue. One of the things that I had 2 aunts that were like a little bit older than my brothers and I, and they took it as their mission to try to make gentlemen out of us. You can decide whether they succeeded or not. But one of the things they would do is we were walking down a sidewalk, they would always tell us we had to walk on the outside. when we walked on the sidewalk with them. We were down in a town area or something like that, because gentlemen always walked on the outside. They didn't walk on the inside. We come to a door. Now, I mean, they were just, it wasn't like they were afraid to open a door or something like that. The hardworking gals, they're still living. They're great gals. But they would always have us open the door for them, because gentlemen always open the door for them. I mean, I'm just telling you. And so there's only been a couple of times I've been rebuffed for that. I'll open the door myself, thank you. Like, okay, I'm okay with that. You don't have to. But at the same time, what I would say is politeness, kindness, whatever your view of that is, however you've learned those skills. There's certain things that I'm sure I didn't learn growing up, and I'm awful at. And someone go, man, that's really rude of him. But I believe saying thank you and please, yes, ma'am, no, sir. I mean, yes, sir, right? It should be no, sir. No, anyway. But I think those things, should they, you're going to have, I know some people are going, that's just ridiculous. Well, I don't know whether it is or isn't. I'm not here to give you all the wherefores on that. I'm just simply saying, however you would like to be treated, treat other people that way. If you're like, well, I kind of like being treated rudely. Okay, well, then you go ahead and treat people rude, and I'll preach your funeral with about 4 people there. It's like, we can do that. I mean, that's just the way it goes, I remember one time my brother, oldest brother, he's done so many funerals, he's like, I don't know, I don't understand. It's like people that die love him or something, I don't know what, but he just does tons of funerals. He's done tons of funerals. He told me about this one where he didn't know the lady at all. He just knew like one of the kids or something. So he sat down with them, with the family, and just said, no, generally I'm just going to take some time, go around here and get a few things. Everybody, you say something. Tell me, I didn't know your mom, so tell me some things about her that I can share. Well, as evening got going, he started going around. I think she had about 4 kids or something like that, and he went around to each of them, just asked them, say, what are some good memories you have, or some things that you. And they go, I don't have any good memories. She was, they said some names and things. Even like, we're glad she's gone. I'm like, grief, man. And he said he kept going with, just tell me with something, he couldn't ever get him to say a good word about her. Couldn't get him to say a good word about her. Now, that's unusual, okay? That's unusual, because most people even lie when someone dies and try to come up with something good about it. That's one time you do hear some lying going on, it's like, we never ever saw it, but they were a good person. We know they were a good person, We never showed up, but, come up with something. I'm just telling you, the quality of your life, if you obey this, will improve significantly. If you've been neglectful of this right here, I'm just going to tell you the quality of your life can improve significantly. On days I practice this best, they'll almost always be my best days. On days I've been self-absorbed or absorbed with things and schedules and stuff and didn't pay much attention to this at all, those are harder days. So I want you to think very thoughtfully, carefully, and strategically. What can you go out here and do to people? Yep, just go do stuff to people. But do things to them that you'd like to have.